16, and then on the board it says 1 through 16 because I didn't want to go through and change the whole slide that I had done on Monday for Sunday, and so just thought I'd share that with you. If we had a professional slide person, I could chew them out come Monday morning that the slide wasn't right, but
form a committee,
because I've done that before. I've actually been all over the person that was doing the slides before because they messed them up, and thank God that I'm not in that place anymore. So, and I'm not saying not in that place as in a place, a building. I'm not in that place anymore in my heart. So we're going to look at Ezekiel, the 34th chapter this morning. I promise you today, looking at my watch, that you're going to get out of here early today. And you hate it when I say that. But it's been a great week of Thanksgiving, and hopefully you all have spent a little time with family, or you've called family, or you've said something to family, or you've maybe been around family. Hopefully you've eaten well. We ate well at our house, and Elizabeth cooked for a couple of days, and then everybody brought stuff, and so everybody was at our house on Thursday, and it was good. It was good. Nothing incredible happened. It's just good to be together, and have kind of everybody under one roof. And you always miss those people that aren't there for whatever reason. And so the book of Ezekiel is a prophetic book, and Ezekiel is a prophet, and he's talking about what is to come. And so this week, as I began to think about what I would share in between Thanksgiving and Advent, if you did look at the website this week, there is this kind of pre-Advent Sunday, or you could call it a post-Thanksgiving Sunday, and it just happens this way every year. And so for those of you that come out of liturgical backgrounds where we always celebrate Advent, and we're going to celebrate Advent here because that's I did come out of a liturgical background, and so we're going to celebrate the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas, and we're going to have an Advent wreath and Advent candles, and we're going to light those and do all that stuff that you do in a liturgical church, which still kind of dumbfounds some people that we would call ourselves undenominational, and yet we still do those kind of things. Ezekiel comes up because Ezekiel is looking at this time that is in between. Saul has been chosen, David is to come, and so there's this in-between time. And Ezekiel is a prophet, and he hears from the Lord here in the 34th chapter, and he begins to share this intertime of what is about to occur. And he talks about shepherds and sheep. Now, if you want to put your Advent hat on and talk about shepherds and sheep, you can also see exactly what was happening. I'm going to put my Bible down again. You can also see exactly what was happening at the time that Jesus came. So even though this is a time kind of when Saul's already chosen and David is to come, it's this in-between time. But yet this is the same thing that happens in this intertestamental period, which is this 400 years where God goes silent. And that happens right before the book of Matthew, and we end up, and there's this intertestamental period where God goes silent. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it in your own life, but have there been times in your life that you've thought, hey, God just went silent. I'm not hearing from him. I'm not seeing him. And so I find it really curious this morning that we have How Have You Seen Jesus this week, and it's just like, here we had Thanksgiving, and we've all been with family and all that kind of stuff. But what did we miss out where God was in that? That's not in the way of saying, wow, I sure wish you would have said something. It's just in the way of saying, were we listening? Sometimes sometimes we're not listening, or we're not looking. And yet there was this time here before Jesus comes, and we're talking about sheep and shepherds. And isn't it interesting that when Jesus comes, God reveals it to the shepherds first? And so he talks about shepherds here in Ezekiel 34. So I'm going to read this to you. Ezekiel 34, 1 through 16. The word of the Lord came to me, that's Ezekiel. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the shepherds of Israel who only take care of themselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourself with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You have not brought back the strays, or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally. So they were scattered because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, they became food for all the wild animals. My sheep wandered all over the mountains and on every high hill. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because my flock lacks a shepherd, and so has been plundered and has become food for all the wild animals, and because my sheep did not search for my flock, but cared for themselves rather than for my flock. Therefore, O shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against the shepherds, and I will hold them accountable for my flock. I will remove them from tending the flock so that the shepherds can no longer feed themselves. I will rescue my flock from their mouths, and it will no longer be food for them. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on a day of clouds and darkness. I will bring them out from the nations and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines, and in all the settlements in the land. I will tend them in a good pasture, and the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down in good grazing land, and there they will feed in rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice. We move on over to the 20th verse, and it says, Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says to them. See, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep. Because you shove with flank and shoulder, butting all the weak sheep with your horns until you have driven them away, I will save my flock, and they will no longer be plundered. I will judge between one sheep and another. I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken. May God add his blessing to reading this word. Beloved, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, God looks down and he sees them scattered. He looks down and he sees them scattered. I don't know if you've ever been to Waffle House. You know what I'm going to say, right? I don't know if you've ever been to Waffle House, but if you've been to Waffle House and you ask for your hash browns, you ask for them in lots of different ways. One of them is scattered. You know what that means? Anybody know?
All over your plate.
Well, that would be officially.
All over the grill.
Yeah. Yeah, they're scattered. In other words, they're going to put eggs and sausage and cheese and they're scattered. It's not just hash browns. It's scattered. It's the way that every good heavy man ought to eat hash browns. is basically just get everything and put them all in there and scatter them. And so that's one idea of the word scattered. The other idea of the word scattered that we use a lot is that they were brain. That's right, they were scatterbrained. They were scatterbrained. In other words, they couldn't focus on one thought. Couldn't hold it together long enough to focus it on one thought. Another way we use the word scattered is when we talk about any kind of animal that you cannot find all in one place is scattered. And that, for hunters, that's a very common thing to see sometimes when you go hunting, especially in gun season, because they have been scattered in bow and black powder season. And sometimes they don't come back together. It depends on the weather a lot of times as to whether they come back together. And so the same thing goes when you go quail hunting, which is what I love to do more than almost anything, is the truth is that's when you really get to see a good dog work. Is that any dog can find a covey. It's a good dog that can find the singles when they're scattered. And that's so much fun to watch that happen and to know how that's going to be. And so scattered comes across with all kinds of different terminology, but what I want to talk to you this morning about, and I don't want to give you any answers, I want you to think about this for yourself, and I'm not going to draw any conclusions this morning at all, which is really kind of counterproductive to what a sermon is supposed to be. I'm supposed to lead you down the primrose path, and we're supposed to jump over the river together, and we're all supposed to be there at the end. And the truth is, today, I don't want you to be anywhere at the end. I want you to be thinking internally about what has happened in your own life that has left you scattered. Scattered. You see, we've all, at one time or another, found ourselves basically away from the flock. And I'm not talking about away from church. I'm talking about away from the very things that keep us safe. Away from the shepherd. Whatever that shepherd might have been in your life. And we catch ourselves in this in-between period. Now, hopefully, you never reach a point that you are away from the flock and you never return, but it does happen. We've seen it in our families. We've seen it amongst our friends. And so scattering is more of an interval thing when you basically step away. That's not scattered. That's intentional. That's not an interval. Intervals are set up in between our lives. We all go through these intervals, and these intervals can happen maybe in a week, maybe they can happen in a month, maybe they can happen in a year. And we go through these times of different things occurring, and in these times, sometimes we're scattered, sometimes we're close. But our whole life is built on these intervals. Well, we're just finished the semifinals in football, and one of the things that I love about being around the football team is this singular focus. If you are ever a part of something that has a singular focus, you should, I hope that you just relish in that you love that focus, that singular focus that takes place. Well, at Carl Albert, and I don't know how long it's been going on because I haven't been around the program for a long, long time. But, and I don't know, maybe you started it 22 years ago for all I know. But right now there's a singular focus on a marble. It's a marble. But that marble, you would think, has all the power of humanity in it at the end of every game. When a marble is delivered to someone who did something special in that game. Oh, I wish we had a marble. I'm always amazed. I'm always amazed at what it is that gets our attention. You know, you never know if you're going to get the marble or not. There were plenty of marble-worthy moments the other night in the ball game. But there's always that one thing that draws people out of themselves. Like when a guy who just does the straight job every week, kind of solid, misses a few, struggles a little bit, kind of comes into his own this year. I guarantee you it was a highlight reel of a catch that came from a foot off the ground. There's no way he should have been able to hold on to that. This is not a hands man. But he did. And he took off running. Not really a runner either, to be quite honest. He gets the mark. You see, at that moment, on the sidelines, everyone scored that touchdown. And you could see it. You could feel it. It was tangible and palatable when something like that occurs. I can still feel the tingles just on my arms right now, because it was everyone focused in one accord, moving in one direction. You see, that's what God wants out of us. That's what He wants out of us. And yet, sometimes we find ourselves scattered, dispersed, broken up, disbanded, separate, going in different directions, going separate ways, scattered. I want you to grab hold of this moment between Thanksgiving and the beginning of Christmas, and I want you to begin to focus on the goal. You see, the goal of Christmas is not really a baby being born in Bethlehem. That may be what you've been told, and that may be what your Christmas decorations look like, and that may be what the light show over here in Midwest City, and the one in Chickasha, the one in Yukon, and the one in Ardmore, and the one in Muskogee, and all these. Maybe that's what the representation is it's all about a baby being born in Bethlehem. But you see, that's not the focus. That's not the marble. That's the beginning of the marble. Well, that wonderful marble story came on Friday night, but it was Tuesday that I sat down with a group of boys in a room, the video room there at Carl Albert, and we sat down in a circle and we're scattered. We're scattered. We've got 3 different groups in that room, and I have a group of guys that are club swimmers, for whatever that means, and then I've got some kids that came from Carl Albert that just wanted to swim, and they just work themselves silly, and they're just good swimmers and bad swimmers and all in between, and they just want to be there to swim. And then I've got this group of boys who basically were told, you're going to swim this year, and you don't have any choice about it, and if you're going to play on my team this spring in baseball, you're going to swim. And so I don't know how you feel about that, but literally, I'm pretty dense, I think, at times. When I finally realized on Tuesday, actually I've been praying about it since last Friday, but on Tuesday it kind of all came aware. If you were told you had to do something versus you choosing to do something, you see, the concept is totally different. You see, I think the church has done that to us in a way too. That guy's got a great bass. I mean, that's an awesome bass. Somebody should go out and give him $1 to help him pay for the next bass he's going to have. You see, if you're told you're going to do something versus you joining and wanting to do something, two totally different concepts that are going on there. And you and I are the same way. We're no different in that regard. And the church has told you this is what you have to do. I don't see Jesus ever saying that. I mean, I've looked hard. I don't ever see in the scriptures Jesus saying, this is what you have to do. Now, if you'll just go A to B to C to D, you're going to end up at E. Jesus just keeps showing grace. And he keeps not just showing grace, but giving grace to everyone that he encounters. And people then choose to do that. Or they choose not to. That's what Ezekiel's saying in our scripture this morning. Is God is actually prophesying against those who were told, this is your job. You must do this. If you do this, this will happen. But they didn't do that. They chose a different path. And so they began to take the sheep and use them to their benefit instead of caring for them. And so the sheep eventually scattered. We're in a weird time. Not New Wine so much as our country as a whole, our lives. When things don't go our way, we have a tendency to scatter. So I've got these 3 groups in swimming that I basically sat down with them and said, you don't have to do this. And I'm going to give you the out. And I hope you will, but if you don't, it's okay. We're going to move on down the road. And then on Thursday, I don't like doing this. Then on Thursday rolls around and we have a wonderful brunch and we're going to have our main meal in the afternoon and I'm watching what's going on and Joanne, I apologize. I get my panties in a wad and I scatter. Because it's what I've learned to do. You separate yourself. You move away. You go into your bedroom and you sit down on the bed and you watch television and you separate yourself so that somehow you don't feel or don't whatever. If you say you've never done that, I'm going to call you a liar. Because we all have a way of protecting. You see, the sheep were starving. They were starving for a shepherd. And their shepherd went away, only taking care of himself. You see, the shepherd in this story is Saul, and Saul has begun to only take care of him. And he doesn't want to look to the future. He only wants to look to the now. And in looking to the now, we have a tendency to cut off our future. We become scattered. So I said, our country does that. Our churches do that. We begin to fight for what is right now instead of being mindful of what is to be in the future. I said I wasn't going to draw any conclusions, so I won't. What does it take for you to be scattered? It didn't take much for me. I just looked around and thought, hey, something's not right here. I'm going to run. I think that's what we have a tendency to do. I think it's easier to run than it is to face. We live in a time when we're teaching our children in elementary schools and middle schools and high schools to do three things. The first two, in my opinion, are wrong. We teach our children, now think about this, we teach our children to run, to hide, and at last resort, to fight. I think that's totally counterproductive to the Scripture. There's no time that Jesus ran. There's no time that he hid. And in his own way, he was quite the fighter. But that's what we teach. And therefore, we find ourselves scattered. So, what causes you to be scattered? Is it fear? Fear will scatter you. Fear will definitely scatter you. Again, fear is counterproductive to the word. Is it wounds? It's a term that I have grown to love and to hate. Because the wounds in my life cause me to do things that I wouldn't normally do if I were to think about it, and so I hate that. But the wounds in my life also open up a sense of grace to me that I have never known before. Wounds will cause us to scatter. And those wounds can start from very, very young. And those wounds can also be inflicted as of last week. So what is it that causes you to scatter? Is it the lack of support that causes you to scatter? You see, in our scattering, we're literally running from the very support that we need. And we're finding ourselves alone, isolated. Is it that we're not grounded in a brotherhood or a sisterhood, if we want to be politically correct? So I go back to Friday night 2 weeks ago. Not this past Friday night 2 weeks ago. And I'm a little fragmented. Some things happened that I didn't appreciate, that I didn't that I didn't like, and remember, it is all about me. That's the reason I get this time. Is it's all about me, and so I'm struggling with this, and I go to the football game, and as I get to the football game, the very first person that I get at the football game, as I'm walking in, because I'm coming in at halftime after a swim meet that we have had over at Rose State, the very first person that I am confronted with is a person that says, "How did you do tonight? Did you win?" "Yes, we won." The second person, "Did you win?" "Yes, we won. We beat Putnam City North, we beat Shawnee. We love that." I go across to the sidelines. Actually, went straight. They were just getting ready to come out of the locker room. So I'm moving across to the sidelines. I run into two administrators. The first thing they say is, "Did you win?" "Yeah, we won. We won." I go to the sidelines. Now remember, this is in the game before the semifinals of the state championship. And I go to the sidelines, and without fail, every coach along the sidelines, they're coaching a football game, remember? We were up, but we weren't up too much. And every coach, as I walked down the sideline, said, "Did you win tonight? How did you do tonight?" And as that continues, quite literally, I am lifted up out of my own sense of hurt, the wound, because I was in the right brotherhood. Because that brotherhood cared about what happened at our game, even in the midst of their game. You see, to me, that's what church is about. That's what this is. It's being in the right brotherhood. It's being in the right community. It's participating in the right family where I look and see that you're down and I ask the question, how is it with you? Being willing to accept whatever the answer is. They didn't know that we'd won. They wanted to know if we'd won. And the brotherhood built us up. You see, I believe. So Thursday morning we do this thing at our house, and I love doing it. Every Thanksgiving we turn on the television. I know that doesn't sound like a real close family knit thing, but every Thanksgiving we turn on the television and we watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And you can't watch the faux Thanksgiving Day Parade on Channel 9. You have to watch the real Thanksgiving Day Parade on Channel 4. And I'm not necessarily a Channel 4 person, but they actually have the real Thanksgiving Day Parade because their cameras are right in the middle of Macy's. And they have it painted on the street and they do all the things there. Channel 9, I'm just trying to help you all out for next year. Channel 9, they do the faux Thanksgiving thing where they do pre-recorded stuff and they bounce back and forth, and you get to see the beginning, you get to see a few floats and that kind of stuff, but not like you get to see on Channel 4. And so we watch on Channel 4. And on Channel 4, every year we are sitting there when Coleman Clark comes on. Now, it used to be his dad, but now it's Coleman, and Coleman is now running BC Clark, and we were waiting for the jingle. And Coleman comes on, and Coleman says, this year, we've let our employees off for Thanksgiving, and we're going to be closed on Black Friday. And we will start our Thanksgiving sale, our pre-Christmas Thanksgiving sale, on Saturday morning. And they do an entire 30-second commercial with no jingle. Joshua was in the hallway, and Elizabeth said, Joshua, come here, quick, as Coleman's on television. And we know we're going to get the jingle. No jingle. There's something that tears at the fiber of your being. When you are so expectant of having that joy of your entire family being focused on one thing. Jewelry is the gift to give. It's the gift that will live and live. And no gold ball. No marble. We couldn't focus. So we sang it ourselves. It was as though in a moment, just for an instant, we had become scattered. And we were looking for the shepherd. And Coleman did not provide for us. How quickly we are scattered. And how difficult it is to find our center then. You see, the center is not based in a baby in Bethlehem. The center is based in our acceptance of who He is and what He has done for us. He is our only shepherd. It is not the church. The church is simply the jingle. Let us focus as we walk into this Christmas. Beloved, you have an opportunity over the next 4 weeks to do some incredible things. But it is not about the gifts that you give. Those are simply the jingle. It is about the way that we gather each other and those who are scattered. I don't know if you can see the picture very well. I know you can't see it as well as I can on my computer because it never comes out quite as well. But quite literally, there are sheep that are scattered all over this hillside. They're all over this hillside. And the truth is, you and I walk into places every single day where sheep are scattered all over. You have sheep scattered all over Middale Technology Center and all over Carl Albert High School and all over your work and everywhere you go. You have sheep scattered all over OBU. I know that you think that OBU doesn't have scattered sheep, but they're probably the most scattered sheep. And there are scattered sheep everywhere. Everywhere we go, every place we find ourselves, there are sheep that are scattered. And you are literally called to be the David that Ezekiel talks about. Do you remember who David is? David is a man after God's own heart. That's who you're called to be. The man after God's own heart. The shepherd who is constantly gathering the sheep. Not just gathering for gathering's sake, gathering for protection, for care, for comfort, for binding up those that are wounded. That's what Ezekiel said. I will take them, God says. I will bind their wounds. I will heal the sick. We are called to be the shepherd. I invite you to shepherd all that come into your life. Don't run. Don't hide. Fight for those that you have the opportunity to draw in. Be the David. If we are to emulate Christ, then we are to also be the shepherd. Let us pray. Father God, in this day, let us not just look to Christmas as a time of giving and merrymaking, and let us look to this as the start, the beginning, the fresh new opportunity to be the shepherd that you call us to be people after God's own heart, to literally bind the wounds, to heal those who are hurting. Oh Lord, thank you for the wounds that you have bound in me. Not that the scars don't remind me of your truth, but they also keep me from running and hiding. Let me fight for you and fight with others, that we might all at one moment receive that marvel that keeps us focused on the ultimate goal. We ask these things in Jesus' name.